Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Maryam Zia. Tonight we will discuss Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to Saudi Arabia, in which he represented Pakistan at the second joint Arab Islamic Summit. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, in his address, strongly condemned Israel's attacks on Gaza, Lebanon, Iran, and also urged the global leaders to protect human rights. Aside from the summit, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif also held meetings with key Saudi leaders for economic cooperation between both the countries. In today's program, we'll be talking about, of course, the significance of this summit, how far, of course, the world and especially when we talk about Arab and Islamic world have come together for the rights of Palestinians. We will be discussing in today's program. We will be also talking about the bilateral and multilateral cooperation between Pakistan and, of course, these Islamic countries gathered there. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Mr. Sheharyar Khan, who is analyst. Welcome to the program. We are joined online by Mr. Jauhar Saleem, who is President IRS. Welcome to the program. Mr. Jauhar, let me start with you. Of course, when we look at this summit, this was the second extraordinary joint Arab-Islamic summit. Of course, we witnessed last year the first Islamic summit held on November 11. How significant was this summit, especially when we talk about it from the perspective of Pakistan?
It's a very significant event. As you would recall, the last year was a Saudi initiative after the Israeli invasion of Gaza, which had begun to result in a massacre and unprecedented reign of terror on Palestinians there. So now it's been a year, more than a year has passed since then. And unfortunately, what we have witnessed is, what the world has witnessed, of over 50,000 Palestinians killed, more than two-thirds women and children. And not just Gaza, but also subsequently Israel has attacked Lebanon, and they've killed people in thousands. And also the tensions between Israel and Iran, which are threatened to spill over of this conflict much beyond the region itself. So this is a very alarming situation for the Muslim countries, and Saudi had taken this initiative, by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, popularly called MBS. So MBS had recently said as well that he wants to build a coalition, not just for Muslim countries, but other countries as well, to put that type of pressure which is required on Israel through the Americans and other countries, Western countries, that would actually stop this brutality that they are bent upon continuing relentlessly. And we know how many efforts were put in place by the Biden administration as well for a ceasefire, but at the end of the day, Netanyahu literally bulldozed all the efforts, whether they were coming from the Americans or within the UNSC, United Nations Security Council, or from the UNGA, or the world bodies, even the International Court of Justice, and the proceedings in ICC as well. So unfortunately, Israel has totally disregarded the world opinion, which collapsed on that, because it was one issue where the world almost got together with one voice, whether it was South America or Europe or North America, East Asia, everywhere.
At the same time, at this point in time, what potential obstacles do you see when we talk about implementation of significant measures for the rights of not only Palestinians, but of course Lebanon, and of course we have witnessed that Israel's aggression is growing now each day?
Yeah, actually what is happening there is, first of all, Israelis, probably in Gaza, they have achieved much of the military objectives that they could, because beyond that, what else can they do now? Literally, although they're still carrying those strikes, but we see now that the death loss is now sort of climbing down a bit, because already so much devastation has been wreaked upon the Palestinians. leadership, the top tier leadership, like people like Ismail Hania, Hassan Nasrallah. I mean, this is of course that's like Hamas, and Hassan Nasrallah who's the leader of Hezbollah, but also even the others, the second tier leadership like Muhammad Dair, and then after Ismail Hania, of course, when that Yahya Sinwar was given that position, even he was killed. And in Lebanon, the second and even the third tier leadership after Hassan Nasrallah was eliminated. So the point is that at this, so there's some analysts who actually feel that Israelis have been prolonging it also to help Trump win the American election, because this issue has really impacted upon the U.S. election. As you know, people, the Arab Americans, Muslim Americans, the young people, the college graduates, who generally vote for the Democrats. But this time around, many of them, like in millions, they stayed away. They did not vote. And that is why Kamala Harris got she got about 13, 14 million votes less than what Biden got the last time, when he won. Although these people generally vote Democrats. So I think there's that. So probably once Trump takes over, what we will probably see is then intense diplomacy. And Netanyahu, who has a very close personal rapport with Trump, then may be a little more flexible because the two reasons. One, that they have achieved much of their
right, of course. And in the coming days, we are going to be witnessing how USS's policies is going to be changing towards Middle East. Thank you very much, Mr. Jauhar Saleem, for joining us in today's program and for your valuable input. Let me take the same question to Mr. Sheharyar. Sheharyar, when we talk about this significant event, and this was the second, of course, this summit is the second time that OIC and Arab League have gathered together. How significant is this event for Pakistan? And also, in your opinion, how do you see the primary objectives of this summit?
So, Maryam, this is a very significant summit that is taking place for the second time now, since it starts in 2023, last year on the same date. So, this summit also presents a unified diplomacy of both the Arab states and the Muslim states of the region, in which they basically focus on promoting regional stability, humanitarian needs of the people of Gaza. Other than that, it also presents a very viable conflict resolution mechanism that can be applied to basically end this conflict. And this also brings together all the regional stakeholders on one page on how to basically deal with Israel's aggression and the escalating crisis that is developing in the Middle East. So, when it comes to the key objectives of this summit, one is to give unhindered access of humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza that have been suffering under the Israeli occupation. And as we all know, Israel has been stopping all sorts of humanitarian aid using various tactics which go against all tenets of international humanitarian law. And one way in which the summit is taking this forward is by providing a unified stance between the Arab states and the Muslim states on getting the people of Gaza unhindered access to the humanitarian aid. Other than that, this summit also brings about a platform in which geopolitical tensions can be resolved and a viable way forward. And the viable way forward is the establishment of a Palestinian state with the borders of 1967 and with Al-Quds Sharif as its capital.
Right.
That is what Pakistan
and
stands,
of course,
and that is also the stance of the UN.
Of course,
as
that
well.
leads me to my next question, that Pakistan's stance has always been to establish of course, Al-Quds Sharif as its capital and along the borders of June 1967. How do you see today's address of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif at the summit, and how do you think that, of course, Islamic countries as well as Arab leagues can move forward, keeping in mind, of course, various countries pushing for arms embargo on Israel?
So, Pakistan, obviously, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's stance basically gives Pakistan's position in which Pakistan stands united with the people of Palestine and Pakistan is advocating at the forefront on to ending this humanitarian crisis and the unprovoked aggression and tearing apart of the international law that Israel is and all the atrocities that Israel is committing in the region. So that is like Pakistan's stance. And then Pakistan is also bringing all of the Arab and Muslim states together and presenting a unified stance. And this unified stance is like very important in basically bringing about what the regional stakeholders of this geopolitical arena, what they basically want. And as we know that there has been a change in command in the US White House as well. So this unified stance that will be coming from this summit will also provide the roadmap and guidelines on what the regional stakeholders that have the biggest stakes in this crisis. So this will give a guidelines to the next US administration on what the regional stakeholders are thinking and what their stance is.
Right.
And this will also give a pathway to them.
Do you think that, of course, with being Saudi Arabia at the heart of this summit and holding this summit for the second time, do you think this is going to be influencing, of course, US regional stakeholders as well as international community towards peace or towards a solution of the violence that we have been witnessing since October 7th?
Maryam, as we know, like Saudi is a very important geopolitical player and a very important regional economic stakeholder that is like present, and it's also like providing leadership and bringing together all Arab and Muslim states together on one unified platform, that is basically this joint Arab Islamic Summit. So this is providing a very perfect platform on bringing together all stakeholders, giving a very what do you call it, a unified stance on how the regional players want this crisis to end, and how, and also presenting a roadmap on how this whole conflict can be resolved, and future pathways as well are being presented. So this will be a very good indicator on how the next US administration can also take inspiration on how the regional players want to resolve this conflict.
Right, but of course, aside from a Muslim world and Islamic countries watching this summit closely, we know that a global community, global players are also watching this closely. How do you think that the decisions coming out of this summit might impact the international community for moving towards a solution or resolution of the violence that we have been witnessing unfolding in Middle East?
So Maryam, what the positive impact of this summit is that most of the demands or the learnings, I would say, from this summit are not anything new. Now I think like most of the world has basically reached a similar conclusion as well. If you look at the platform of the United Nations, they basically have also come up with like the same recommendations and the same demands from the Israeli government and the stakeholders that have historically been supporting Israel have also like moved away, and like Israel is now moving towards a sort of a global isolation as well. And a lot of like historical supporters of Israel, if we look at France, if we look at Belgium, if we look at other regional countries in the Europe, the calls for halting all supplies, weapons, ammunition to Israel are now emanating from most of the European Union countries as well. And this is putting a lot of like pressure on the new administration in the US that will basically be taking charge in January. And a lot of like pressure has been piling up from various international multilateral organizations as well, with the UN taking the lead. And now with this Arab Islamic Summit, all the regional stakeholders have also presented their collective voice as well. It will be very difficult to ignore.
Right, right. We are also joined online by Mr. Fahim Al-Hamid, who is a strategist and is specialized in conflict zone and is specialist in Pakistan-Saudi Arabia relations. So welcome to the program. When we talk about, of course, Pakistan-Saudi Arabia relations, of course, we know that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in his sideline meetings also held important meetings when we talk about investment between both the countries. Can you elaborate on those meetings? Of course, these meetings are of course in line with the previous meetings between both the countries. How do you see this visit?
Well, thank you very much for you and for your colleagues. In fact, the bilateral, meetings between the Honorable Prime Minister and the Prince and other senior official, it is, it comes on the framework of the bilateral relation to enhance the investment and enhance the strategic cooperation between the two countries. But we should not forget, if I might say that, the Prime Minister of Pakistan is attending the extraordinary Arab Islamic Summit. And Pakistan has a full, is a full member of OIC and, has played a major role in solving the Muslim countries' crisis, especially the Gaza. So the Gaza issue. So I would, strongly believe that, in other than the business and investment and bilateral, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, along with the 55 countries of OIC, they are now thinking very differently out of the box how to, come out with the formula with the new administration in the White House, how Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and other Muslim countries could put the two-state solution on the table where we can move ahead and close the page of this Israeli barbarism.
Right, of course, this second extraordinary joint summit of Arab and Islamic countries remains significant for the region and beyond. But when we talk about, of course, Saudi Arabia's global ship role, Saudi Arabia recently also created international alliance for implementing a two-state solution on global discussions about Palestine. And of course, Pakistan's stance has always been aligned with this. How do you see the other countries, especially the global powers, coming into discussion about it with 90 plus countries being part of this global alliance?
Yeah, exactly. This is very important, and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, in his speech, has highlighted this, that Saudi Arabia, along with the Arab and Muslim countries, has managed to forge an alliance, and this alliance, which has been announced by Saudi Arabia in United Nations, uh, the first meeting of that alliance has took place in Riyadh, and as you truly mentioned, there was 90 countries attending that. So Saudi Arabia today, as per my information and intel, that in the closed door, they are pushing towards to move that into to greatening that alliance. We are having 21 countries Arab. We are having 55 countries from the Islamic countries. What the Arab and Muslim countries and Saudi Arabia is leading, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Egypt, Syria, all these very important countries, they want to put this in the United Nations and move and table a resolution. If Saudi Arabia, through its strategic partner in the 15 countries, in the General Assembly, I'm speaking, we move this as a resolution without any veto from the five countries, that will be a different, game changer. And I think this is what Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and all Muslim countries want, with the support of the Trump administration, which will be forcing the Netanyahu, because now the situation in the region, there is a change in the region. If you have listened to the Saudi Crown Prince speech today, he condemned the Israeli attack on Iran. So, there is a ground reality. Iran is full on board with Saudi Arabia. So having Iran on board, I think the pressure of the new Trump on Iran will be less. Do you have any questions, sister?
Right. And my next question is regarding the same, like, of course, when we talk about condemnation, Prince Mohammed bin Salman strongly condemned Israel's attacks, not only on, of course, Gaza, Lebanon, but its aggression on Iran as well. And of course, same were the sentiments of Pakistan's Prime Minister Mia Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif as well. How do you see these countries coming together is going to be changing the perception of this issue or this conflict in the coming days?
I totally understand your question, sister. You know, Pakistan, as I told you, along with Saudi Arabia, and you always, there is the big countries in the Muslim and Arab world. You know, there is a change in the tune of the Arab and Muslim countries, and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia is leading that. The Arab and Muslim countries, led by Saudi Arabia, supported as a strategic partner Pakistan, they would like to be in the decision making, not to be in part of the decision making. They would like to get out of this hegemony. They would like to take the decision should be there, not to be followed up. You have seen Saudi Arabia for the last 5 years, how it was they are, changing its position and leading the Muslim countries and putting their decision on the table, United Nations. This is what the Crown Prince, along with the Prime Minister in Pakistan, Prime Minister of Malaysia, President of Indonesia, President of Egypt, this is where they would like to bring the Arab and Muslim bloc to the United Nations and use our resources to put it on the table.
Of course, that remains an important aspect of Pakistan-Saudi ties. But my last question to you is about the economic ties between both the countries. That remains significant aspect of relations between both the brotherly countries. So when we talk about a recent visit of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to Saudi Arabia, of course, he met with Saudi Investment Minister Khalid bin Abdul Aziz Al Faleh. How do you think this meeting is going to be advancing the economic ties between both the countries, and what lies ahead between both the countries in terms of investment?
No. I see that this meeting is a follow-up to a very high-profile visit of the Saudi Business and Investment Delegation, where for the first time, I think, I don't know if I am true, I can say the history, there was more than $2 billion B2B, I mean private sector to private sector MOUs with more than $2 billion. That means now that the Saudi government is paving the way for the private sector to come and do investment. So the meeting of the Prime Minister with Excellency Engineer Faleh is a follow-up to those MOUs and what will be the process to have the boots in the ground. Today, the political situation in Pakistan is stable. Today, there is no law and order in Pakistan, so investment can only come when such, ground environment, peaceful environment is available.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Fahim Al-Hamid, for joining us in today's program and for your valuable input. Sheharyar, coming back to you, of course, this summit remains an important aspect, and we are going to be witnessing once the statement comes out. But coming back to the significance of ties between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, how important was this visit of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to Saudi Arabia, especially in the context of recently signed MOUs between both the countries and important sideline meetings of Prime Minister with, of course, Minister of Investment. And in what areas do you see both countries are going to be cooperating in coming days?
So Maryam, if you remember, a very high-level Saudi investment delegation had visited Pakistan.
Comprising of 100 plus
100
delegates.
And in that visit, around 27 MOUs were signed, and the volume of investment for those MOUs was around $2.2 billion. Now, in this recent visit of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, there were more meetings held with the Investment Council in Saudi Arabia, and the number of MOUs were increased from 27 to 34. And the volume of investment has also increased from $2.2 billion to $2.8 billion.
And what economic projects were discussed in these meetings?
So in these meetings, a lot of economic projects when it comes to power generation, when it comes to support in the energy infrastructure of Pakistan, oil and gas. Other than that, other investments in other businesses as well. Aramco, Saudia's and the world's largest oil company is now entered Pakistani market as well. And as we can see, even in Islamabad, they have started making investments already, and they have already opened around 2 fuel stations as well, which is a first step in them coming into the Pakistani market. Other than that, there were a lot of pending issues when it comes to investment between the two countries, and all of those issues were very amicably resolved as well. And a lot of previous investments, also investments related to K Electric, and any issues when it comes to, and the whole reason why SIFC was established and why it's working so diligently now was to basically eliminate the red tape that was historically a barrier for international investment. And it's a very positive impact that the whole establishment of SIFC is already bearing fruit. And all of these MOUs now, with the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to Saudi Arabia, are being converted into binding legal contracts. So,
right.
yeah.
That remains an important aspect of the visit when we look at, of course, a bilateral cooperation between both the countries. But can you tell us about multilateral cooperation, especially when we look at Pakistan's cooperation with OIC members and Arab League members?
So Maryam, it's not just the Saudis that are investing in Pakistan. We see a lot of investments coming from UAE, and we are also witnessing a lot of investments coming from Qatar as well. And under the whole platform of OIC, under the whole platform of the Arab League, and historical supporters of Pakistan in this region, we have been getting a lot of support, and we've gotten support when Pakistan was facing a huge economic crisis. And even when negotiations with the IMF were taking place, these were our brotherly countries that basically stood side by side with the people of Pakistan, and they supported Pakistan's bid for the IMF
and during
loans
economic crisis that we were facing at the time.
Very, very harsh conditionalities this time around when they were placed. All the guarantees were provided by these brotherly countries that have stood by Pakistan. And other than that, they're not only providing loans to Pakistan, they are now heavily investing in Pakistan in various sectors that are there under the whole auspices of the SIFC. And in that whole, there's oil and gas, there's the IT sector as well, there's a huge investment coming in the agricultural sector as well. And this will not only benefit Pakistan's economy, this will be a very positive boost for the GCC countries as well, which basically import a lot of these food items from across the globe. And now they will have a very positive platform in Pakistan, where all of these agricultural investments would be made, and it would benefit Pakistan's local economy and the economies of the GCC countries as well.
Right, of course, that is the investment and economic aspect of these ties, but of course other relations, and especially diplomatic relations, remains an important aspect of Pakistan's ties with Islamic countries and with, of course, Arab League. To talk more about it, we are joined online by Mr. Baluch, who is former ambassador. Welcome to the program. Mr. Baluch, when we of course talk about Pakistan's representation at this important summit, how do you look at it, and also how do you think this is significant for strengthening Pakistan's diplomatic and economic ties with Islamic countries, members of OIC, and with Arab League?
Yes, thank you, Maryam. I think this is a very important summit which is taking place, and as we all know, that is Arab and OIC leaders have come in there. So it's kind of a twin summit, uh, and it comes at a very, very crucial time when the Ummah and the Arab world is facing several challenges, especially the issue of Gaza, the tragedy which has been going on for the last about a year, the bloodshed, uh, and then, of course, the political changes which are being witnessed in the wake of the elections in the U.S. So I think it was important that our leadership wanted to kind of get a collective wisdom together with the OIC and with the Arab leaders as to how to deal with these challenges. So I think essentially the discussions would have been revolved around uh, collective challenges, political, economic, cultural, uh, and other issues of peace and war in the world. But definitely, such summits are also important where the Prime Minister or the heads of the leader of the Pakistan delegation would have has got
Right.
the opportunity to meet at the one-to-one level and discuss about various bilateral cooperation between
Right.
Pakistan
And
and Saudi Arabia and other friendly countries.
right, and lastly, when we look at this summit, of course, this it's still ongoing. How do you think its outcomes are going to be influencing global action, especially in terms of legal action against Israel's aggression in different countries, including Gaza, Lebanon, and of course, Iran?
Media. Yeah, I think this is a very strong voice, a collective voice of the Islamic and Arab world. And I think the world should take note of it and would, in my view. And there are some concrete proposals which have been put across, and I'm hopeful that they'll be followed up at various forums, including especially the United Nations, where Pakistan has been in the forefront in putting up several initiatives uh, in accordance with the international law, especially. So I think Pakistan is playing that prominent role, the leadership role at the UN level, at other international fora, and I think that is what the least that we can do as the one of the founders of the OIC. I'm sure let's recall that the historical Lahore summit of the OIC was a kind of foundational stone which laid the foundation of OIC, what we see today. Its stature, its charter, its membership, that was all based on that summit that we had in 70s in Lahore. So I think
Right.
Pakistan continues to be in the leadership role in the Islamic world. Yeah.
Right, and in terms of implementation, Mr. G.R. Baluch, what actions are expected to enforce an immediate ceasefire in Gaza?
I think there are several proposals to bind Israel and because Israel is in a clear violation of international law, not only international law of peace, but even law of war, where they cannot attack, they cannot kill civilians and non-combatants. So they have violated several humanitarian laws. And as we all know, that the Prime Minister of Israel and his other officials have been indicted in the International Criminal Court. And Pakistan, along with the other Muslim and Arab world, has been pursuing several initiatives where even there is a proposal to suspend the membership of Israel to the UN because I think it is now no more behaving like a state. It is a armed gang which is killing people at will. So I think that is where the big tragedy is that Israel is being supported by lobbies in the West, and especially in the U.S., where the Israeli lobby has a lot of influence. So I
Right.
think
And Mr. J.R. Baluch, at the same time, what are the prospects for arms embargo on Israel? Because a lot of Islamic countries and other participating countries are discussing this seriously. So what are prospects of it?
very difficult in the sense that because the biggest, the largest arms are coming from the U.S. and some of the Western countries, UK, and some other countries, where there are even there are a lot of protests also against it. But so far, the lobby, the Israeli lobby, has been able to. I think they are in complete control of the decision making mechanism or the structure of the U.S. and other Western capitals. So I'll be very practical. It will be very, very difficult, but still, I think we should continue. The Islamic Ummah should continue. The Arab countries should continue the pressure on the Western powers who are supporting this warmongers cabinet of Netanyahu, and they must be told to relent. And we hope that the new president of the U.S. will be sworn in January, as per his promise, that he will wind up all the wars, will also play his role and try to force Israel to stop its genocide in Gaza.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. J.R. Baluch, for joining us in today's program and for your valuable input. Sheharyar, your last word on the outcomes of this summit and, of course, in terms of significance of it in changing global perspective on the ongoing violence in the Middle East.
So, Maryam, now the world cannot afford to ignore the crisis in Gaza. Most of the countries, especially the historical supporters of Israel, will have to basically self-reflect and re-evaluate their unfettered support that has resulted in the loss of over 50,000 civilian lives alone in Gaza and around over 2,000 lives in Lebanon and counting. So the international community would now have to take very drastic steps in curtailing their long-term ally Israel, stop arming it, stop giving it bombs, stop giving it weapons, and hold it accountable to international law. And if these countries or the European countries or the Western countries on the whole do not put an end to it, then I personally think the whole international order would be in jeopardy.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheharyar Khan, for joining us in today's program. Of course, we discussed about this significant second extraordinary Arab Islamic Summit taking place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and of course in this conflict and violence that is happening in Middle East. This is, of course, a beacon of hope for the world. And of course, we also explored different aspects of Pakistan-Saudi Arabia relations. We'll be talking about this more in our upcoming programs. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.